built by Africans and for Africans. And basically, what that means, it reflects their African identity within the product that is built. It's built to meet the need of Africa in whatever environment of Africa that may be.
You're in the right place. Welcome to the Built in Africa podcast, where we connect trailblazers of the African diaspora through the unifying language of tech. On this episode, we connect with Rodney Bollie, co-founder of the Institute of Basic Technology, the nonprofit STEM lab based in Monrovia, Liberia. Let's get into it. There's always a backstory behind the problems we decide to solve and the causes we decide to uphold. In one impact, there lies the question, why me? Or better yet, why not me? Listen as Rodney shares how his journey led him to create the Institute.
Institute of Basic Technology is both me and my wife's idea, and primarily it was from our own background, me coming from Liberia and coming over here and seeing just how much uh, access that I had through being able to have a good education. And so my question, at least personally for me and my wife, was how to transport, such experience back home. And in trying to do that, we wanted to answer the basic question of what does it mean to educate someone who's in an economically challenged environment, and so that's something we wanted to be able to do. And so for us to be able to do that correctly, we wanted to find a means of measuring those socioeconomic impact, those things that negatively impacted learning, so as opposed to the catch-all phrase of poverty. So we wanted to look at discrete impediments. So to date we are researching, for example, access to study materials. How does that? What sort of impact does that have on your learning? Vocabulary. What sort of impact does that have on reading comprehension? Your parental background, their own educational background. How does that influence your own education? And or even affirmation, just giving some form of verbal encouragement or pat on the back, does that have any form of marginal impact? So we took all of these discrete factors, as we call them, and started to bin them and look at some form of do some form of statistical measurement on all of the students within our environment, because these were, again, things that we, or at least for me, coming from Liberia, that were lacking in my educational journey. So it was pretty much from my own journey, and also wanting to give back to where I came from, and where my wife's parents are from, to be able to do that in some meaningful way.
Since 2017, the Institute has provided over 2,000 high school students with STEM education. Listen as Rodney sheds light on the current state of STEM education in Liberia.
A lot of the high school, maybe about 1% or less than a percent, across the country had no laboratory for high school students. So most of this, so students go through all of the, high school journey. In fact, they're, pretty much pre-college journey without ever having to see a microscope, touch a computer, make some chemicals, or did anything. So I audited some schools while I was there and sat in the classes, and I saw that this deficiency between what was being taught on the board and the student comprehension. There was this hands-on aspect that was lacking, and having gone through that myself, I realized that a lot of what was being taught on the blackboard by the teacher would be quickly grasped if the student had an opportunity to be immersed in some hands-on environment.
Thinking beyond the classroom, Rodney shares why it's important for students to be proficient in STEM.
Giving students the basic tools or ingredients with which they can bootstrap themselves out of that situation. So whether it be teaching a student some basic programming language, say in Python, for example, learning how to build an app. And if you can take that knowledge and connect it to a need within their immediate environment, you've created some form of job opportunity for that student. So basically, we went the route of STEM because it was relatively cheaper, because if you can give the students the tools right out of high school, you can enable them to do a lot of different things for themselves economically. So we chose that route. And in addition to that, the subject of STEM is pretty pervasive in just about every thing, from even from writing. So your typical high school student in Liberia doesn't know how to use a computer. Talk less about writing a document in Microsoft Word, for example. And so we wanted to give that foundation.
How we define success often determines the life we decide to live. In pursuit of a reward greater than monetary gain, that which includes changing the lives of students across Liberia, Rodney shares the impact the Institute is having.
One of the things we also wanted to see, as we did all of our measurements, was to see how many of our students were transitioning from high school to some form of post-high school education. And so basically, 2017, when we first started, we had 3 students, for example. 2 girls went to nursing, 1 guy went to education. They might be done by now because that was 2017. And so this past year, we also went back and started making phone calls, because basically after a year, we follow up to see where they are. And, so right now we have close to 20% of that graduating class that has gone to some form of post-high school education, so that's a success story for us.
And that's it for this episode. If you haven't already, check out the full article on our website, builtinafrica.io, found in the description. And while you're there, subscribe to our newsletter so we may keep you up to date with the latest. But until then, keep building.